The sound of a child being struck is something a mother never forgets. It happened so quickly that for a moment, nobody at the Thanksgiving table even moved. My mother-in-law, Eleanor Whitfield, had slapped my 8-year-old son Noah across the face. He fell against the floor, his plate crashing beside him. 15 adults sat there in complete silence while Eleanor shouted that Noah was not truly part of the family and had no place in her home. I didn't shout. I didn't argue. I simply knelt beside my son, pulled him into my arms, and carried him toward the table. Then I placed one sealed envelope directly in front of Eleanor. I looked her straight in the eyes and said 6 calm words. My lawyer is already involved. The color drained from her face. Her plate slipped from her hands and broke on the floor. Nobody there understood what those words meant yet. My husband Michael stood near the window, completely motionless. After 38 years of being controlled by his mother, he had learned to freeze whenever Eleanor became angry. His sister Claire suddenly became very interested in her phone. His father Frank couldn't even look up from his plate. But none of that mattered to me. All I could think about was Noah. His cheek was already red, and when I gently touched it, he whispered something that broke my heart. He apologized, as though he had somehow caused what happened to him. I took him home that night and said almost nothing during the drive. But there was something Eleanor didn't know. 3 weeks earlier, I had discovered a secret she had spent years protecting. Michael's grandfather, Walter, had created a trust for his 3 grandchildren. He had wanted each child to receive an equal share of his money. Noah was supposed to be included. But after Walter died, Eleanor quietly changed the documents. She removed Noah's name. Her excuse was that he wasn't related to her by blood. Then she started using the money herself. A remodeled kitchen, an expensive vehicle, school expenses that had been deliberately inflated. More than $400,000 had disappeared while Noah received absolutely nothing. And Eleanor thought nobody would ever find out. She was wrong. I had already hired an attorney, Diane Rhodes, several weeks before Thanksgiving. That dinner had been my final chance to see whether Eleanor's family would stand up for Noah. Instead, they watched her hurt him. That was the moment I stopped giving them chances. What happened afterward exposed far more than a stolen trust. Frank eventually came to me privately and gave me another envelope Walter had left behind before his death. Inside were documents concerning a second trust created specifically for Noah. There were also private recordings Walter had made over the years. One recording contained Eleanor's own voice insulting Noah and saying that he weakened the family's bloodline. Then Claire came forward. Through tears, she admitted that Eleanor had forged her signature on a $200,000 mortgage without telling her. For the first time in decades, the family began speaking the truth. Michael finally broke away from his mother's control. He even contacted his estranged brother David, whom Eleanor had pushed out of the family 23 years earlier after he married someone she disliked. At the deposition, Eleanor arrived wearing pearls and acting completely confident. That confidence didn't last long. The evidence kept piling up. Bank records, altered trust papers, financial documents, forged signatures, and recordings in which Eleanor openly revealed how she felt about Noah. Then Frank walked into the room unexpectedly. He announced that after 41 years of marriage, he was seeking separation from Eleanor. He also handed over information about hidden financial accounts he had discovered under her maiden name. By the time the case reached court, Eleanor's carefully protected story had collapsed. The original trust document clearly included Noah's name. The altered copy showed exactly where his name had been removed. Receipts demonstrated that money intended for the grandchildren had been spent on Eleanor's personal expenses. Then came the evidence nobody expected. Walter had recorded a final video before his death. In it, he explained a clause stating that if Eleanor ever abused her responsibilities as trustee, control of the trust would automatically transfer to me. The courtroom became completely silent. Under oath, Eleanor finally admitted why she had removed Noah. He wasn't her biological grandchild. That was her entire reason. The judge immediately removed her as trustee and ordered her to return the stolen money with interest. She was also given a $50,000 penalty, and the matter was referred to the district attorney for possible criminal fraud charges. Eleanor eventually had to sell her house to repay what she owed. The woman who had controlled that family for decades was suddenly living alone in a small apartment. Months later, she appeared at my door. She carried a wrapped present for Noah and asked for an opportunity to apologize. I accepted the gift, but I didn't invite her inside. I told her that she had spent years being given the chance to act like a grandmother, and every time she had chosen cruelty instead. Then I closed the door. I didn't open it again. A year after that Thanksgiving, everything in our lives had changed. Michael cooked the turkey himself. It wasn't perfect, but nobody cared. Frank arrived after his divorce looking happier and more relaxed. David traveled from Chicago with his wife and children. For the first time, Noah met cousins he had never even known existed. There were 12 people around our Thanksgiving table that year. Every chair was filled by someone who had chosen to be there. Later that night, I tucked Noah into bed. He looked at me and asked what family really meant. I told him that family isn't simply about sharing a last name or blood. Family is about the people who keep showing up for you, especially when standing beside you is difficult. Noah smiled. He told me he was happy. Those two simple words meant more to me than every document, every courtroom victory, and every dollar Eleanor had been forced to return. I turned off his bedroom light and walked downstairs. For the first time in years, our house was quiet. But this time, the silence didn't feel frightening. It felt peaceful. And finally, I knew my son was surrounded by people who would never make him question whether he belonged.